Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum everybody, and Ramadan Mubarak for all of you. My name is Mahmoud Khasha Muhammad. I am an assistant professor in the Civil Engineering Department, College of Engineering, University of Anbar. My BSc was from the University of Anbar in 1999, and my master degree was from the University of Technology in Baghdad in 2002, and my PhD from the University of Nottingham, United Kingdom in 2015. My lecture today is a part of a research methodology course for the civil engineering students and for postgraduate students in civil engineering. The title of the lecture is Selection and Formulation of Research Title and Setting of Research Problem, Aim and Objectives. Actually, the lecture divided into three main parts. The first part is about how to select and formulate the research title, and the second part is about how to establish the research problem or research question, and finally the third part is about how to set the aim and objectives of a research or a project. Let me start with the some details about the outlines. So the outlines of my lecture are how to select and formulate a project research title, general background and definitions, and in this point I'll discuss the differences between the research question, research hypothesis, and research variables. The third outline is how to write an effective project research problem. And at the end of this part, we have some training and practicing with point number 1 and 3. Point number 1 is how to select and formulate a project research title, and number 3, how to write an effective research problem or research question. The next part, I'll discuss what are the differences between aims and objectives of a scientific research, and how to formulate or set the aim or the aims and objectives of a scientific research. And finally, we have some training and practicing within point number 6, which is about setting of aims and objectives. Okay. The first slide, I try to answer this question: how to select and formulate a research or project title. Let me start with this question: what makes the topic good in general and the title as well? There are some features make the title and the topic good, like the topic that's strongly interesting to you and to others. It is a creative, that's mean a unique topic or unique title, and it is unusual or not repeated title or topic. The third, it is not to be too broad, and you have to know how to narrow it if it is broad. Before writing a research title, you can ask yourself some questions to formulate the final title of your research. These questions are: what is the research about? Second, what is the techniques design did I use? Who and what did I study? And finally, what were the results? We can see that we use the past tense here because the research title usually be written at the end of your project or your research. Let me move to the next slide, and here we have some training and practicing in how to select and formulate the research title. I have an example here for the civil engineering students. Let us assume that your project or your research is about plastic fiber addition in concrete and its effect on tensile strength. This is a simple example, and the concept of answering this question can be considered when there is another topic or another complex topics. At this point, I have prepared some answer behind these boxes. I ask you kindly to stop this video and try to answer this question according to the above title. Okay, at this slide, I'll show you my answers to these questions. So, the first question is, what is the research about? My answer was, my research studies whether the adding of plastic fiber can increase the tensile strength of concrete or not. You can compare your answer with this answer. The second question is, what is the techniques or design did I use, or did the researcher use, or did you use? I said I used experimental tests, and this is up to you. You can add another techniques, maybe models or other result analysis techniques in this question. The third question is, who and what did I study? My answer is, I studied the effect of adding different proportions of plastic fibers on tensile strength of concrete. And the fourth question, what were the result or the results of the research? So my answer is the addition of plastic fibers improving the tensile strength. You can see that I highlighted the keywords in green color because your next task is to list these keywords and combine them after that in one or two sentences. So the next step is to list the keywords from the answers, which they are in green color in this slide. I have a task to you here in connecting the keywords that you already listed in one or two sentences. Then you have to choose some keywords from these two sentences or this sentence to set the final title. And then after that, you can add subtitle to your research title. As I said here, you can stop the video at this point and try to find some suitable answers for these, or not answer actually, you're writing about these points. In this slide, I have connected the keywords that I have already listed in one or two sentences. I choose two sentences for my answer. So I said, improving in tensile strength of concrete was recorded using different proportions of plastic fibers. And I add another sentence. This was examined experimentally. I highlighted some of words in red color to set the final title of my research. So the final title can be improving tensile strength of concrete using plastic fiber. This is a simple title. And at the end, you can add subtitle to this title, and the whole title will be improving tensile strength of concrete using plastic fibers and experimental study. So I add an experimental study as a subtitle to cover all the words highlighted with the red color. Okay, in this slide, you have to remember these steps always when you write or select your research title. The title should be short and simple as much as possible. Second, include all essential information about your research. Sorry, there's a mistake here. You research, I meant your research. Of course, you are not a research, you are a student or an audience. So please correct you to your research. The third, avoid using abbreviation or too many technical terms in the title. However, sometimes there are a common abbreviations. For example, in my field, if I said SCC in capital letter, this means self-compacting concrete. And this is a common abbreviation for a type of concrete. So I can use it in my title. Anyway, you have to avoid the abbreviation in the title of any research. Fourth, use keywords that highlight what you research about. As we did in our example, we highlighted the main key points and trying to answering what you research about. And finally, never insert a period at the end of your title. This is the first part of my lecture, which was about the selection and formulation of a research title. Before moving to the second part, which is about how to establish a research problem or research question, let me read these two important quotes for Albert Einstein before that. The first one, or the first quote for Albert Einstein, who said, if I had an hour to solve a problem, I would spend 55 minutes thinking about the problem and 5 minutes, only 5 minutes, thinking about solutions. And the second one, he said, the formulation of a problem is far more often essential than its solution. The solution may be merely a matter of mathematical or experimental skill. From these two quotes, we can see the importance of formulation of any problem, including a research problem, of course, to find the best solution. Let me move to the second part of my lecture, which is about research problem or research question. What is a research problem? A research problem or research question is a clear expression, that means statement, about an area of concern, a condition to be improved upon, a difficulty to be eliminated, or a troubling question that exists in scholarly literature. In other words, identify something that is not known but that is possible to find out. Remember always, as a researcher, that if you cannot establish a good research problem or a good research question, you will not be able to find a good solution for this problem. It is a good idea to know some features about the research problem or the research question. So, the future of research problem can be summarized as follows. The most important task to justify your research purpose. So it is an important step in your research. You have to use the literature to find the gap of knowledge to define this research problem or research question. Understanding what the problem is. You have to understand the research problem very well. The problem should be interesting, significant, and feasible. At this point, if I have two problems, the percentage of occurring the first problem is 60%, and for the second problem, 90%. So it is well to do a research in a common problem that happens 90%. And finally, find what is known to identify gap or gaps you want to address. You have to search in the literature to find the gap of knowledge and address this gap in the research problem. As researchers, we have to differentiate between research question, research hypothesis, and research variables. These terms are closely connected to each other. Let us take an example of a research topic, and as I said, I used simple examples, and the concept can be considered for complex examples to simulate these these components. So let's start with the research question. Assume that the research topic is examining the effect of using different amounts of water on a compressive strength of a concrete. So remember, the research question should identify something that is not known but that is possible to find out. And you can use these questions: what, how, why, and when, for example. I have already prepared a research question for this topic behind this box. So you can stop the video at this point and try to write your question. My example is the research question about this title is: how does changing the water cement ratio can affect the compressive strength of a concrete? So this is a typical answer for the title. Actually, before I move into the research hypothesis, I prefer to describe the problem, the research problem, and at the end of this section, I'll put the research question. Or I can add the research question to the introduction parts if there is no individual section for the research problem. Let me move to the research hypothesis. It is a prediction of what the research will find out. So we can define the hypothesis as an empirical statement verified based on observation and experiments of your research. It should be testable to be true or false through a research study finding. The characteristics of the hypothesis or the research hypothesis are: it should be logical, account for relevant information, testable, and simple. Let's remember the simple example about the water cement ratio and the compressive strength of concrete. The hypothesis can be changing the water cement ratio in a concrete up or down will cause the compressive strength to change in same way. Try now to write this hypothesis using if statement. I said if I change mean decrease or increase water cement ratio, the compressive strength of concrete will increase or decrease, and you can add the reason for this hypothesis because. Now, the variables or the research variables are divided into two types. The first one is dependent variables dV and independent variables IV. Independent variables manipulated to influence the dependent variable. It's kind of cause and effect or influence outcome. So the independent variable are the cause or the influence, while the dependent variables are the effect or the outcomes. It's like an input or output. You can describe the input parameter as independent variables, and the responses or the outcomes are as dependent variables. For our previous example, water cement ratio can be defined as independent variable, and the resultant compressive strength can be defined as dependent variable. Now we can connect these terms together: research question, research hypothesis, and variables to formulate our research. However, we can now differentiate between these terms. Now I'll move to the third part of my lecture, which is about the aims or the aim and objectives of a research. The aims are broad statements of a desired outcomes or the general intentions of the research, which paint a picture of your research or project. Emphasize on what is to be accomplished and not how it is to be accomplished, because how it is to be accomplished is related to the objectives of the research. Address the long-term project outcomes. For example, they should reflect the aspirations and expectations of the research topic. Generally, a research or a project should have one clear aim. However, sometimes no more than 2 or 3 aims or sub-aims, in fact, are possible, while the research may include a number of objectives consistent with the aim. Some tutors prefer the first type, or some supervisor prefer the one focusing aim, and others like to see sub-aims in this aspect. Now, objectives can be considered as supplementary to aims, and the characteristics of the objectives are the steps you are going to take to answer your research question, or a specific list of tasks needed to accomplish the aim or the project or the research. Emphasize how aims are to be accomplished. As we said previously, the objective should focus on how the aims are to be accomplished. Must be highly focused and visible. Address the more direct project outcomes. Make accurate use of concepts. The objectives must be sensible and precisely described. And finally, should read as individual statement to convey your intents or your aims. We can see in this slide that we can use the acronym SMART to describe the objectives of a research. S means specific, M means measurable, A means attainable, R means realistic, T means timed. And the figure in this slide show the difference between the aim and objectives of a research. Now, at this slide, I summarize the steps to write aims and objectives. So, you have to state the overall purpose at the beginning. Start by coming up with the reasons of carrying your research or project. Emphasize in what is to be achieved, which is the aims or the aim as already known, and how it is to be achieved, which is the objectives of your research. Then write down the main tasks that help to achieve the overall aim of your research. Write down the main tasks to achieve your purpose, and these tasks forms your objectives. Remember the SMART acronym that we have talked about already. Break down the main task to specific tasks that need to be measured and carried out. And finally, set your research objectives. let us move to some training and practicing on how to set the aim and objectives of a research. Let us remember the simple research question from the previous slides, and the main steps can be considered for more complex research questions. The question was, how does changing the water cement ratio can affect the compressive strength of a concrete? Now, your task is to prepare a simple aim and objectives for this research. Now, you can stop the video at this point and state the overall purpose and state the overall purpose and start by coming up with the reason and are carrying out the project, and combine the first and second to set the research aim. Let me start with the first point. So, start the overall purpose. My answer is, the main aim of this research is to examine the effect of using water cement ratios on the compressive strength of concrete. The second point, start by coming up with the reason you are carrying out the project or the research. My answer is, the reason is to check the effect of water content on the compressive strength value of concrete. After that, try to combine 1 and 2 and set your research aim. The main aim of this study is to examine the effect of using different water cement ratios on the compressive strength of concrete. The reason is to check the effect of water content on the values of this property in concrete. So we combine the first point and the second point to set the aim. The third stage emphasizes what is to be achieved, aim, and how it is to be achieved. So we have already done the first one, setting the aim, simultaneously with the start of this steps. 4. Now it is the time to set the research objectives. Try now to write down the main tasks that help to achieve the overall intent or aim. My answer is, or are, for this. I said, first, studying concrete mix design, production of concrete, using different water cement ratios in concrete, examining the fresh requirements, checking the compressive strength experimentally, and the relationship between water cement ratio and compressive strength. Normally, the objectives start with 2, so you can say to study concrete mix design, which is the first objective, to produce the concrete, which is the second objective, and to use different water cement ratio in concrete, and so on for the rest points. Finally, you have to break down the main tasks to specific tasks that need to be measured and carried out. And you can take your time by stopping this video and do this task. The final objectives of this research, after breaking down to a specific task, will be, first, studying of different types of concrete mix design in terms of fresh and mechanical strength requirements. Second, production of different types of concrete, such as normal vibrated concrete, self-compacting concrete, and lightweight concrete, for example. Third, using different water cement ratio in these types of concrete. Fourth, examining the fresh requirements of each type. Fifth, checking the compressive strength experimentally. Sixth, using the research result and the previous results to formulate the relationship between the water cement ratio and compressive strength for each type of concrete. And these are the final objectives of my research. At the end of this lecture, the student should be able to do the following. First, propose and formulate a title for a scientific research or project. Second, establish a research problem or a research question. Third, understanding the difference between research question, hypothesis, and variables. Fourth, set the aim or the aims of a scientific research or project. And finally, set and define a research objectives. For any questions for this lecture, please do not hesitate to contact me on my contact details, محمود at universityofambar.edu.iq, or my private email, mahmoudkh@yahoo.com. At the end of my lecture, I'd like to say thank you for your attention, and I hope to see you in next lectures, inshallah. Thank you.